Hello, this is our Findhorn Barrow, episode number 9 already. And today we've got my good friend and also former housemate, John Özgüç, also known as Pasha. Hello, John.
Hello, good morning.
And right now we're in Hexyad, where I used to live with John for a few months. And the sun is shining in through the windows and we can see the field of dreams in front of us. So you've only landed last night, John.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for talking to us this morning.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you got involved in Findhorn and your connection to it?
Yes, it's a nice story actually. It's basically partly because of the housing crisis in the Netherlands that I ended up here, because I was living in a anti-squat guardianship kind of setup, because normal rent is crazy expensive, and with this anti-squat you give up some of your rights as a renter, and they can give you a notice of 1 month, and in return you get cheap rents and you can live in places nobody is supposed to live normally. In this case, it was a really nice house in the city, and then in a old villa of where it was former psychiatric office, let's say, in a whole area in nature, which was destined as a sanctuary for people with psychiatric problems. So we were living in this Swiss-style villa, kind of, with 7 people in a nature reserve, which is really cool. But the downside was that the first house was 1.5 years, the second was 3 months, and the second I got the notice already after 2 weeks, and I had this intention like, okay, this is unsustainable. I have this music studio and I have to move a lot of stuff every time, and it was really stressing me out. I didn't want to ask my friends to help me move all the time. And I was like, okay, it's time next year to go and work or volunteer in the eco-village. At this time, I was dating someone who was also into eco-village, which also inspired me. And in the first house, I learned that sitting on couches and chairs is unhealthy. So I was like, hey, I have to move. Couches and chairs are unhealthy. I will give them all away. And one of them was a friend who lives in an eco-village in the east of Netherlands. And he invited me to chill on my couch in his eco-village. So I did this a half a year later. And at this point in time, there was a friend of him, and she invited me to go to this eco-village where there was a event and I could help there, and I went, and she saw I was making cool videos, and this girl happened to be volunteering in Findhorn, so she gets updates sometimes, and she saw right at this moment I set this intention, okay, next year I'm gonna volunteer or work in some eco-village, that there was a space for a content creator, and I was like, eco-village, Scotland, content creator. Sounds like me. So
Nice.
I applied and I was chosen. Yeah.
And John, what's your experience of other eco-villages and intentional communities around the world?
Yeah. So this eco-village I mentioned, where I did this program, which led to being here. It is a very luxury eco-village, and it is started like 25 years ago. They have like a guest house, which is like a hotel, and they have compost toilets on every floor, let's say. It's
like just a hole that drops. No, wait,
I don't know how they did it. It's like, but it's magical to me and very nice and artsy, and they got it with funding of the EU and stuff. I don't know.
What's the name of it? And where is it?
Siebenlinden. It's in nearby Hanover. So this was interesting to see. It was a little bit too luxury for my idea, let's say. But yeah, then again, there was also people living in caravans. So I think it's a nice mix. And when I observed people working there, it was like people were burning out for people who want to have like a ecological experience, like for the paying people. So the people who live there as a volunteer I felt they're sometimes kind of being sacrificed a little bit in order to make the system work. And it's very German, so very structured and like a machine, like an oil machine, you know. So like waking up at 6, making 2 meals or 3 meals a day, and then having 1 or 2 or 3 hours of break in between work. But of course, you're mentally occupied with work still in those 3 hours because you have to watch the time and you're tired. So on that level, I don't find it so sustainable. But that was my observation. It was otherwise really nice. There was many nice people there and cool stuff going on. Yeah. And they're living mostly from their own food, which is, I think, important in the eco-village. And I don't see that happening here.
Yeah, something that could maybe happen more here.
Yeah, especially in the future when you see what happens in the world directly affects the food prices. And it's I don't know. I was away when it happened, but I saw there was a rationing on certain food products here in the UK for some time.
There was a few weeks where there wasn't any eggs in the supermarkets in Glasgow, and that really confused me. I wasn't sure what happened.
I never noticed because I always buy local eggs, so I just never noticed a loss of eggs.
So the cities get hit first.
Always, yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing that the unhealthy and mass-produced things get out of stock. But it's always good to have local produce, I think. So that was one experience. I think my first experience of an eco-village was in Bolivia. I was just taking a bus to Bolivia and I met someone in the bus station and we started talking a lot in the entire bus ride. And she was going to eco-village or a community in Bolivia. I didn't know much about it, but I was invited and I stayed there for a week making photos and videos for them. And it was very nice with the volunteers and the people there, and it was interesting though because it is kind of in an unsafe area, so it was like there was a beautiful wall around it. And it was next to a big city, and it was led by a guru, and you really have to like the guru in order to stay there for long term, I think.
Did you like the guru?
I didn't really connect so much with him and I didn't see him so much. I think he was not entirely ridden of ego, but that's just my observation from this short time I was there.
Well, this is the problem with these kinds of communities. It's built around the guru. What happens when the guru dies
or
goes
gets
insane?
crazy?
Which is liable to happen sometimes.
Yes. So this is kind of a downside of a guru-based eco-village. But it was a cool experience. There's, I think, also differences in how do you say this? The role of money. Like in some places you can really observe, like if you're volunteering, you either have to work really hard and not enjoy your experience anymore, for example, or there's a lot of power games or hippies working for rich ass people, like sometimes I see here, especially in the past, as I heard. And hippies working for free. But there's also places where every member of the eco-village in Kassel in Germany, for example, they note down their income, and everyone who earns lower than the average gets some from the people who earn more than the average. So there cannot be inequality
But does it balance out completely, or is it just a little bit?
Like fully. Of course, what you already have, they won't touch. Like there can be wealth inequality, but at least for the future.
But not income equality.
No. Yeah, income equality is guaranteed, basically. And I think it's a very cool concept. So that was really nice. And I would like to learn more about it. There's some more spaces in Holland now which are trying to live by these standards. And I think there's a project in Spain where they are working with low income and people who are staying long term and staying short term and seeing how different needs and wishes and can work together in a harmonious way. And this is good to think because there's not one size fits all when you are in a community and also with these financial needs and situations.
Among the different intentional communities and eco-villages that you've been to, where do you think Findhorn stands amongst all of these?
I was wanting to give one more example from the last question. Then I can think about the next one as well. There is an eco-village in Slovakia, for example, where people who join the community or just volunteer for short term, they can rent the house for €1 per day. So
nice.
This is done with the intention. So people really don't have to think about finance or work other than being with the community or working on the land and basically just sell a cake you make or some drinks or food on the local market and you have your rent fixed.
Yeah, just thinking about the work that you really love doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then something good will come out if that's the work you really love doing rather than just working to survive.
Yes, and this thing of financial pressure really changes the way you make everyday decisions. And if it's not there, you can be closer to yourself and not be in survival mode. I think this is really important.
This has actually been part of like my move to Glasgow, I would say. So a lot of people listening might know that I've moved to Glasgow. I mean, it's just because I have my family home in Glasgow. But it's like once I take the financial pressure off of me living away from home, then suddenly I find myself writing film scripts and doing something that I've always wanted to do and really love and having lots of time to do that. So if all of society maybe had less financial pressure, maybe lots of people would be chasing their dreams more and making beautiful things.
For sure. This is why universal basic income is a solution for many of the problems. Also, crime will not happen as much, at least, because people don't have a reason to. Basically, the financial system is really setting up people against each other in indirect and direct ways.
Intentional competition.
Yes, exactly. There's also a community in the north of Norway, which I happened to stumble because of a random encounter at a small train station in rural Norway of 1 minute. And I was advised to go to Trondheim, and there is a community called Svartlamoen. And they are like there for 30 years. The year I was born, I think they started. And they're doing only self-built houses. And because of that, especially for Norwegian standard, it's very cheap, and they have a lot of... it's not as elitist as in some other places. And it's very nice to see. It's anarchist, and they are very free, and it's in the middle of the city. It's interesting. So many experiences in different eco-villages, and one in Italy which has been made from I think a €1 village, a derelict village, which can be repaired and renovated if you sign a contract with the local government. Torre Superiore, and it's really beautifully made now after a few decades. And this would be something really cool to do with a group of people, I think, to find these abandoned places and make a new community.
One benefit of that one is that they've got Italian weather there as well.
Yes, exactly. And Italian food.
Yeah.
It's really, really something else. Yeah, really something else. In Turkey, they have an instrument making community in the coast.
Nice.
Yes, like they make ethnical instruments there. And yeah, these last two communities, they didn't hear of Gen after all, so they're like not really connected to the other eco-villages. And I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. It's just an interesting observation. And they're doing really cool stuff in this place. And I'm not sure if they are doing a lot with permaculture, but it's nice that they're focused on the cultural practice and on self-sustenance and creating music, because music is really like a social glue, I think. And it's really good that there's a focus on that. And I see it also here in Findhorn, that there's a lot happening with music. But then there's problems with renting places, and the financial issue comes into play here more. So it kind of kills off some spontaneity in things happening, I guess.
And you mentioned Gen, a lot of these eco-villages being part of Gen, the Global Eco-Village Network, which was, I believe it was started here.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this was one of the earliest eco-villages to start. And what's been your observations about this particular eco-village?
When I arrived, I was like, wow, so many old people. This was my first observation, and like, wow, they have this hippie hotel and it's not being used. I was like, okay, they have a lot of potential which is not being used, and maybe somehow why are they not attracting young people? It's a beautiful place. And I think this financial topic is one of the reasons again.
Yeah.
If you don't have a job here, it's expensive to stay here. And and the conditionalities of the jobs here. The difficulties, especially after Brexit, for foreigners. Yeah. So I think, a beautiful place with a lot of unused potential is kind of my my first impression of it. And a lot of power games I observed, and because of forces moving different directions on certain topics, the boat will not move at all, because the sails are set to sail in different directions.
Is this between groups or individuals?
Pockets of individuals, I guess, which have different views on different topics, and no clear decision-making systems. On big topics.
So like a lack of clarity of how things happen.
Yes, in transparency, especially. Like I was surprised that some things were decided inside closed board meetings. It feels like a corporation sometimes. Not like a non-profit.
Was it clear to you the difference between the Findhorn Foundation and the people who live in the
before coming
eco-village? Yeah.
No. I thought it was one happy family, and I heard it was a bit traumatized by this fire which happened. I was like, oh, of course it's fucked up when a fire happens and your community, the center, gets lost. But I didn't know about the interpersonal struggles happened because of people being fired and the way it went. So but from an anthropological perspective, it's very interesting to be in a space like that.
And when you came here, you took up a role at the Findhorn Foundation. Can you tell us what your role at the Findhorn Foundation was?
Yeah, sure. Basically, they do a lot of online education, and they lack the manpower to fulfill these programs. So to assist with Zoom meetings and which happen with people from all over the world, and promote these things so they get filled up. At least this was partly my thing. Like there's a separation between marketing and the education part, and some of my skills were more used for the marketing, and
your skills mainly being in
video and photography. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also music composition. I use some of my music compositions to use the videos to promote the courses. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to say about recent events in the Findhorn Foundation and its direction?
To see or to say?
To say. Or either.
Yeah. I was told by some people that I went on Interrail journey at the right moment, as there was a change in CEO, and I missed many of the things which happened here the last 2 months. But I feel there is some ad hoc reasoning and decision making which happened here. Like I think there's also some intransparency in how they decide things and do things. And of course, I was not at all the meetings which happened, but from the communications I received, I feel that they are not saying everything what needs to be said. But then again, I don't know what there's not being said, but I feel that there's something not entirely right. Yeah. Also, I have not been asked while I was on leave about certain topics, about what my opinion was on certain things. So I just had to deal with the outcome. And yeah, the outcome is that they didn't really look at where they can save their money or boost their income, but just cut on staff hours. And yeah, it's a bit strange, I think, how it went, but let's see.
And would you like to talk about what happened in your situation, to your role?
Oh yeah, so what they said is that they discovered that my visa will not be valid anymore after taking more than a month of unpaid leave. But there would be some workarounds around it, and I don't believe they've been fully checked. But maybe this is also because of a big fear of the government, and people are very government abiding here.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Would you say that this the foundation or the UK maybe is more government abiding than other countries you've been to?
I don't know. Like inside of here, like I expected a little bit more counterculture approach, but yeah, also what I heard about this split in COVID measures, and people were very very ruly and keeping each other to rules without questioning them. And this is also what I felt in my situation. I think it's almost, in some ways, the UK government is, implicitly fascist, and not questioning these things makes the same things happen as in the Second World War. If you just do what your government wants from you, then, yeah, of course, this is way less intense. But I think you should always question authority.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, 1984 and Brave New World were both written by British authors.
Mm-hmm. Were the Tories already active then?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Karl Marx himself was a British author, wasn't he?
Oh, no, he's German.
Wasn't he?
German.
Oh,
Yeah.
somehow I thought he was in Britain. Was he in Britain at the time? Is that...
He did live a lot in London.
That's probably why I'm thinking he's British from now.
And he thought Britain was best suited to the revolution because of the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But
we still got aristocracy, so it didn't.
yeah, and we've still got monarchy as well.
Yeah.
So we like rules here. We like authority.
We like feeling, like we've got someone in
You like being spanked in the ass.
Yes. Maybe there's something kinky to it.
And Queen Elizabeth, the Great Dominatrix.
What an image.
Yeah, feel free to use this. I don't mind.
Can you tell us about the work that you've done elsewhere with your video and your photography?
Yeah, so what inspired me to go into this path was when I was still studying psychology. I was doing a thesis, and on paper it would be really nice to fulfill this. It was quite a lot of beautiful things I could do, or the professors gave me a lot of options to do things in let's say academic freedom. Like I did they proposed for me to do research on theanine and caffeine and the responses on stress and attention. So basically they said, you could give small electroshocks to people and see what their response is after drinking tea and coffee. And I was developing this idea with them. And actually it was a very stressful experience because it's a 6-hour test battery per person, which consists of very boring, repetitive tests. And also my friends were being participants in this research as well. And even though they were small shocks, I could still feel their stress, and it was not nice.
Like Stanford prison experiment stuff.
No, it's much smaller. It's just, but still, the idea of getting electric shock, this was also part of the research, because during the actual test, it was just conditioning people to get stress after they get the warning that they may get shocks.
Oh.
But actually, during the test, there was no shocks anymore. So just measuring the stress response after they get this warning, after they have been conditioned, and checking the attentional resource. But after 6 months in a lab without windows, my hair started falling out from the stress, and I was this bureaucratic system of reporting what you did and how you did it and analyzing, and then all this year of work will end up in the bin anyways, because it's just a bachelor research. And then having to do years more of work, because before having any significant impact, I was like, this is not how I want to spend my life. And then there was an internship offered at a corporate cinema agency. And they offered they just showed me how to make like a corporate film for the university, basically in a month, and I helped them with this. And they heard my film music, and it was like, yeah, awesome. And at the same time, the Standing Rock protests happened. And this made me very angry because I've been raised with the Native American culture and been going to sweat lodges and stuff since I was 7 years old or something. Native American retreats in Europe. So I was seeing how they were like facing genocide again by their only sweet water source being fucked up by an oil pipeline because a white village next to it didn't want it to have it next to theirs. And I felt really powerless by what I could do in the Netherlands. But then 2 people, they went to make a documentary there, and they asked for help, and I offered to make music for the documentary and additional assistance with the film stuff. So I did that, and the trailer went viral, and Dutch banks had to divest 300 million euros.
Nice.
From this project. So it was like,
that's big impact fast.
It's fast impact. It's also a lot of work, but it's nice. So I went onto this path. I helped document a native woman swim 100 kilometers around her island to raise money against another oil project. This was televised. And I really went into this activist mode, especially after drinking ayahuasca in the jungle. I felt like, okay, this is probably my way, just to help nature by making film. And so basically since then I've been focusing on doing that instead of doing stuff with my study. Basically film is mass psychology, so in a way I continued. I helped Extinction Rebellion rise in the Netherlands with 100,000 of views, with videos of like people locking themselves up to the car of not the prime minister, but the minister of the airport, or responsible for the airport. So she couldn't get away, and we could confront her, basically. And many mass actions blocking main streets in Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Basically mobilizing many people for Extinction Rebellion, plant the seeds to see where it is now. So that was really nice. Yeah.
And can you tell us more about your activism?
Yeah, so I always wanted my company to be focused on mainly green initiatives. So my unpaid video work is activist, but I try to make as much of my paid work go into green stuff. So my latest project was for a European sleeper. It's a new train company which starts night trains across Europe, and their inaugural line will be between Berlin and Brussels. So I did a promotional video. I gathered a lot of materials with 4 cameras at the same time on my own, 2 drones, 2 cameras, and in beautiful scenery capture the train going by and make their marketing as flashy and beautiful as possible.
I seen it last night. It's very, very beautiful. The way you capture the sun coming over the water and the bridge. It's stunning.
Yeah, thank you. And wild camping the night before and scouting what are the best angles, making test flights and stuff. So I really love that, to help other people with great initiatives which can change the planet, to make these things rise. And my movies, which I plan to make, like I have a wildlife documentary in the pipeline. And the idea of this one is basically to, I'll tell you a story instead. I was filming an owl family, which I discovered, and I filmed them for like a month. to observe their behavior and capture them in the most beautiful way possible. And this was with a big telelens, so it's quite obvious to people passing by that I was filming something and investing quite some time and money into it. And these people are asking, what are you filming? Like, as if there's nothing interesting, you know? And then I say, look at the screen, and they're like, oh, wow. And they never seen an owl from close. And then they really start to reappreciate nature. And this is kind of my aim, that because people are really disconnected from nature in general, and this is why they can make so disastrous decisions towards nature, because they're disconnected from it and basically don't care about it. And with this documentary, I want people to care more and be more connected to it and think about animals as we're part of the same kingdom. Basically, we are nature and we are animals. Some people, they say we are not animals. What are we then? Are we aliens?
Some people say we are.
Yeah, it could be. Like, I think it's plausible. I will not entirely disregard that theory, actually, but that's a sidetrack. But yeah, this is like a serious problem. I think that there's, even linguistically, there's the separation of humans and nature. As if it's a separate thing. Like
the dog is an it rather than a they.
Yes, exactly. And that's another debate. It's because dogs are created for our comfort, and they're created basically imprisoned animals for our own pleasure and comfort, to be company when we are lonely, and but basically at the expense of this animal being fully reliant on its food upon us and not being able to survive in the wild, and destroying nature in the process, because it's eating mainly meat and also cats, for example. They kill in Holland at least 100 million birds per year, having a severe impact on the ecosystems, and having too much pest, insects and mice, ticks, some of these caterpillars which release many allergenic hairs. For example, if we had enough birds, then this would not be so much of a problem. Cats and dogs are basically not nature. They're created for us and our own pleasure, and they get a safe house, so they basically have an unfair advantage over nature. The same with the honeybees. They get like warm cover in the wintertime, and they basically decimate wild bee species and reduce biodiversity because of it, because the wild bee species, they pollinate in different areas, in different ways, in different species.
Well, I guess these creatures are nature, but it sounds like these creatures have become a lot more like humans, because all the things that you're saying about them, I guess, apply to humans as a species. So
yes, like human-controlled nature. Yeah,
they're taking on our patterns and our sort of effect in the world.
Yeah. We are making invasive, exotic animals in different areas because we like how they look or behave. Yes, we behave like them. I think we were once living in harmony with nature, and indigenous people still do mostly. And we kind of lost touch with that lifestyle because it's not economically productive.
And to go to the effect that you want your video to have, and the effect that your video does have, I've seen how it affects people. I think, so my own personal opinion, so I love film.
Yeah.
And most people watch films, most people watch videos. I know that, like, in Britain, we're very divided as a nation in most things, politically and in our personal spheres. and like on our opinions of different people.
Mm-hmm.
But like one person that Britain is not at all divided on is David Attenborough.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably like the most loved
Yes.
person in Britain. I've never met anyone who's like, I don't like David Attenborough. But a lot of that is to do with these documentaries that he's making, that he narrates, that he features in.
Yeah.
You see the beauty of nature all around us, around the planet, told in like such a beautiful way with some of the best nature footage that's ever been filmed. And people watch these and then they go out and they behave differently. They see things differently. They act differently. They treat the world and themselves differently. They see life differently because this is all around them all the time, but we don't look or we don't go there. Or we don't travel there. But when people do and they share that, then it inspires that in us.
Totally. Yeah. I heard he's like Great Britain's grandpa.
Yeah. And it's been said that beauty will save the world, and that's an example of that, the beauty of film.
Yeah.
Having an effect on humans that is hopefully steering us gradually into a better direction.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what wakes me up every day. Like the possibility to change this world into a place I would want to live in, because currently it's going the opposite direction.
And what do you think has to happen in the world? How should people change, and why should they change in that way?
Many people feel entitled to many things. The sense of entitlement to meat, the entitlement to a car, the entitlement to comfort at the expense of nature, basically. I think, when meat gets abolished, animal agriculture gets abolished, there is this big system of the creation of animals pure to die for us. And we don't see them. We don't see their suffering. We don't see how they are being fed and what they're being fed. And generally just accept and eat fast food or buy a product at the supermarket which doesn't even resemble an animal. Like when I was 5 years old and learned about that meat didn't grow on the trees, like, it's like a psychological game they're playing to make it seem harmless. Also in their marketing, like they show cute animals, but they all butcher them and they're not wild. Like if everybody would be hunting, everybody who wants to eat meat, if they would hunt their own animal, it would be a big difference, because people know what they're doing, and it's very different than just buying a product which has already been killed and put in slices for you.
So what's your opinion on a kind of traditional native hunting of animals? Is that something
I think
you're
that's
not against?
cool.
Or?
I think that's cool, like, because if you're dependent on it, it's different than when it's a choice. Like when
particularly in the north, they rely on fish and things.
The Sami people, mainly they rely on reindeer, and I've spent some time with them, and I think it's fine when you rely on it, especially because so far north, it's very hard to live by permaculture and survive by vegetarian means. So I don't oppose indigenous ways of killing animals and using them for your own survival. But I'm really talking about industrial agriculture, basically the creation of animals for killing.
Could you say, though, in a way, that how we live now, with the number of humans there are, we wouldn't be able to live without this system now? We're kind of reliant on the system. This is the problem.
Yeah, like if we continue to live like this, the earth will treat us as a parasite, we'll get fever and get rid of us, and nature will be happily ever after.
So there might not be an alternative but to change.
Yeah, like it's change or go.
Change or die.
Yeah, it's very easy. And the only problem is that people who want this change, they may be in a minority and they may suffer from the dictatorship of the majority. And I think the dictatorship of the majority is committing a crime,
which is
and should be treated as such.
Which has happened often throughout history. I mean, most of what I guess we could term the positive changes in the last few hundred years, whether that be in the case of like women's rights or civil rights, equality between races.
Yes.
When any progress has been made in these places, then it's the people that spearhead these oftentimes have a very, very difficult time in their lives because there's so much resistance around them.
Yes.
Like Mary Wollstonecraft in the 1700s, who wrote Vindication for the Rights of Women. A lot of people treated her like she was some sort of
Yes.
I mean, people would call her slut and words like that at the time. Gave her a really hard time in life and in society.
Yeah.
But she was really one of the geniuses of her time, for instance. And the way we think about women now is, in Britain anyway, largely down to her.
It's the gratitude to her work. Yeah, exactly. I experienced this myself as well. I was serving in a university council, representing the voice of the students, discovering at a board meeting with the university that they started strategic partnerships with right after a chapter of that they have sustainable goals for 2025 and 2030, and it's very important for them. Right next chapter was reading, we started new strategic partnerships with Shell, ING, and some other shit companies. ING is like a fossil fuel promoting and subsidizing bank and weapons sales across different sides of big conflicts in the Middle East. So war profiteers, basically. And I voiced very loudly against this in public. And my colleagues, I had 11 of them, were not really used to this activist way of dealing with people in authority. And I was like, they're equal, like they just are older. And they should have the sense to make moral decisions. So I started debates on this, and I spent most of my work time like investigating the ties with Shell in my university. I was getting a lot of resistance from many of these colleagues because they were like, don't worry so much, and you can do other work than this, and maybe they're good for the profits of the university, and it's not the main purpose of your work. Well, that's something which I decide. It was not for them to decide, yes. And in the end, there was a lot of research happening across different universities about their ties with Shell. And one of them was happening at Rotterdam University. And the guy who did that was also present at the debate with my board and students. We had a big meeting, and basically it was discovered that Shell was asking the university to produce research with a certain result, basically saying, it is good for the working climate to not have taxes for big companies. They want this result, and they got it. And one of my friends, they found out this happened in one of the other universities. So this is quite meaningful for me. And I felt the resistance of my direct colleagues, but I felt this stress was worth it to reach the higher goal. The feeling of non-acceptance.
Did this go in the papers or anything like that? Or
There is some documentation, like the university newspaper and also some national newspapers mentioned here and there. And I could send some documentation of this. Many cartoonists were making. They ridiculed the board for their hypocritical decision making afterwards. Yeah.
What is it that makes you so passionate about change? What is it Why do you care about the world surviving? Why do you care about humanity surviving?
Yeah, like sometimes, especially when I'm sometimes taking a psychedelic journey, it's like whatever will happen, everything will be all right. But I feel that so much beautiful culture will be lost, and so much music, art, so much appreciation of beauty and inspiring things people are doing. It's like really, really cool. But like, does it ultimately matter when you die or when this species dies out? I'm not sure. I would be sad, I think. But yeah, my first piece of activism was, I think, when I was 5 years old, making a drawing about oil being dumped into water and being against this.
I think you were born to do this.
Yes.
Then. It's inbuilt in you.
Yeah.
Is it something you inherited from your parents, or?
My dad is a businessman. He has a travel agency, and like, I think my mom's side, she was quite a hippie some decades ago, and she burned the master tape of a porn movie, and I think, yeah, she also had a boyfriend in the Rote Armee faction or some far left movement in Germany, and yeah, I think I inherited some of her activist genes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now the road before you in life at this current moment is very open.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of freedom.
Yes.
You're not currently tied down to anything really.
No.
So I'd like to ask you, what's next for John?
What's next? I think I want to explore my Turkish roots more. I've been getting more friends in Turkey. I don't know much about the country except for the place I visited with my parents. Maybe I'll be traveling Turkey with my girlfriend. I want to learn more about permaculture. I want to learn more about community building. It would be cool to do something with a group of people next to an existing community and expand it somehow. Work on my movies, my projects. Yeah, I think that already fills a lot of the time. I collected like terabytes of footage from last month, and I witnessed moments of amazing beauty in nature, and I want the world to see that. So I have to use some time. I don't like to sit behind the computer when the weather is so beautiful and there's so many cool people around. And that's like a infinite struggle of life, like how to balance between these things, sitting behind a computer and doing the creative stuff through the computer, or being in the real world. So yeah, I hope at some point the good side of AI will be able to read what I want to do with video, so it all just edits things the way I want it, but without me having to invest the time for it.
And then more time out in the world.
Exactly.
More time filming.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So auto processing of my ideas, that would be great.
And just like film is a way for you to come closer to nature, technology bringing you closer to nature. I guess that's an example of AI possibly bringing us closer to nature.
Yes.
These things, it's about how we use them.
Yes, definitely. And people are, it's very funny that some people are like, oh my God, the technology is taking away jobs, and like, we're living in a world where having less jobs is a problem. I mean, if you think you're designed to live your life sitting behind a counter and scanning goods. I think we live in a very sad world.
Yeah.
Like, I think many jobs should not be existing, and it's great that they are automated because it's really ruining someone's human potential and creativity.
There's also this thing of this idea that computers and basically just make things go faster, not necessarily better or worse. So there will be things that we're doing that are bad that will do even faster.
Yes.
Spraying crops automatically and all that stuff.
Yes,
so there's the two sides to it.
Definitely. It's a double-edged sword, and it depends on how the technology is being
entire
used.
armies of robots and things like that. That's, there's a downside.
Totally.
Terminator.
I think it really depends on... it's the problem. Like, the main problem is that people with the most money, they are most likely to be psychopaths. And this could result in AI and technology being used for the bad side of the sword.
And that's because the system rewards people with that
psychopathic
kind of
tendencies.
behavior.
Yes. So this is the problem. We need to fundamentally change the capitalist system into some karmic value system where tangibly good things for your communities are being rewarded, and not flipping money by or making wars as big as possible by supplying both sides with big amounts of arms through loans.
And maybe instigating conflicts in the first place.
Perfectly said, yes. So there's a lot of beautiful potential. And what I also found out in research, on Mars, there's proof of craters which contain nuclear isotopes only found after detonation of nuclear weapons. So there could be a past civilization which blew itself into oblivion.
Gosh.
And it's up to us to not do the same.
Or
Maybe
we'll go the way of Mars, the god of war.
Yeah. So I think we as humanity face a beautifully great challenge.
Oh yes. When the first nuke was launched, Oppenheimer said, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," from the Upanishads.
From the what?
From the Upanishads, I'm sure, the ancient Hindu text. So maybe nukes have already destroyed some worlds out there. Hopefully it doesn't destroy this one.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. On a completely different note, will the Findhorn Eco-Village community see more of John in the future?
Yeah, I hope to come back occasionally and help out with nice projects with my skills, because there's many amazing people here, which are very inspiring. And yeah, if there's like less financial conditionality, let's say, then it would be great to be here. Yeah, to stay here, and it would make it easier. Yeah.
And I think the fact that you are leaving from being here on a more permanent basis, I think it's a big loss for this place. And I think you will be missed a lot.
Yeah.
Your soul, your personality, what you do, what you bring, the ideas you bring.
Thank you. Yeah, I will also miss being here, being with the people here. And yeah, it will be a new chapter, but I think it will be, I think there will be possibilities to come here on a permanently occasional basis. Yeah, would be cool. Yeah, and I think you can get here by train within a day if you start 7 a.m. So yeah, it should be possible to come here if there's like some gig opportunities here and place to stay, then sure, it would be very nice to spend time here and help out the community in the ways I can.
And one thing that I'd like to say to our listeners as we close, and you might have some things to say about this, but throughout this podcast interview, if there's anything that any of you listeners have been hearing, maybe politically, for example, that brings up any discomfort in you, I would invite you to ask why that discomfort arises and to examine that. The way I see it, John is a very forward-thinking individual, and often he's questioning things a lot of us take for granted. So when we have a lifelong held belief that is questioned in that way that we might not have questioned before, that can bring up discomfort. That's one possibility. But of course, you may just not agree with everything that John says.
Oh.
And then on that note, thanks very much. Is there anything else you'd like to bring in, Alex?
I don't think anything right now. No, I think the one thing I wanted with these podcasts was to invite different perspectives, because I realized that the eco-village really historically didn't have many news sources. We had the Rainbow Bridge and maybe the Universal Hall, but there wasn't a lot of perspectives, I think, shared. So I think this is just trying to widen that to showcase, I guess, all the different creative ideas people have, but also the different political viewpoints. So I think it's good to invite all that in. I don't think this conversation may not have fitted into the Rainbow Bridge. So.
Yeah.
So here's this is what we want to do with this podcast.
And just to explain,
it's been a great episode. I've loved it.
To explain to our listeners what the Rainbow Bridge is, in case they don't actually get it, if they're somewhere in the world, it's a weekly newspaper, I suppose.
Yeah,
published
leaflets,
by the community, I suppose. Yeah. There's various articles and things going on, but there's not the kind of space to talk about these things.
Yeah, and there's one more thing which I didn't mention, but about the question about Findhorn, like the ecological aspect of the eco-village. I was expecting it to be more eco. There's like the biggest amount of asphalt I've seen the first time I arrived here.
In the roads.
And so many cars and people finding it normal to heat 20 plus degrees as far as 25, I think I've seen. And I'm like, not so eco. And like the under prioritization of ecological living and making a conscious effort in this. Of course, it's quite an individualized eco-village, so this comes down to choices of many individuals. But at least for the communal areas, this would be a good thing to do. And I also voiced many of these ideas, and I don't know how the peoples in power are responding to them. I feel it's not my responsibility to push people in a certain direction, but yeah, it would be good to own the, like, being an eco-village by doing so in a way. So yeah, I really hope for Findhorn to become an eco-village again.
And the way I see it, this isn't just for the future of the planet in Findhorn's case and the eco-village's case. I think it's also for the future of the Findhorn community to draw in more people, to draw in more young people, to become more relevant around the world, and to make this place more sustainable.
Yeah. Also because it's at risk of flooding within 20 years. I already see sometimes the parking lot around the Phoenix flooding with the high tide. So, it's also self-interest in a way.
Yeah. Self-interest is global interest because we are the ones, so...
Yeah. Yeah. If you care about yourself in a conscious way, you also care about everyone around you. If you treat yourself and your surroundings carelessly, it's the same for your environment. Yeah.
Also, I'm just thinking about like all the water that you drink comes in and goes out, and the air. How much of you, your body weight, is actually uniquely you? You know what I mean? Like it's some of it goes
energy from other people.
Through,
Yes, yes.
So
you breathe in the air that Julius Caesar has breathed in at once, and could go really far in this. And what kind of energy does each molecule you breathe in have? Is that what you wanted to say, kind of?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that if you take the weight of the body, it's like 70% water, and that water is constantly being cycled through. So like, how much of you is really just you? You know what I mean? And also the food you eat, and where do you draw the line between you and the other person? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I think there's an artificial sense of separation being created because I think humanity is one big organism. And basically capitalism is separating us and putting us in separate cubicles, especially in the cities where you're living in apartments. You don't share resources which should be shared. Cars are standing still 98% of the time and wasting space, and resources being wasted for its creation for 98% of the time. Just 1.1 person using it. A lot of empty space for a lot of weight being misused for moving around. In many ways, we are being taught that self-interest is the ultimate interest. Like, you learn this from a very young age in education. Competition, getting the highest marks, being better than other people, to compete instead of to collaborate. And in some philosophies of South American natives, for example, if you are spiritually stronger in some philosophical or spiritual battle, you're obliged to share whatever the other person does not know, so you become equal afterwards. I think if we all treat each other as we're part of the same organism, then the potential of humanity would be really unlocked.
And there's also some tribes that they don't have no concept of ownership, individual ownership.
Exactly.
You know, so you give them food and they automatically share it.
Yeah, Ubuntu. Yeah.
Yeah, it's course. Like there's just no. We have this concept that's so ingrained in us. This like this is mine. And yet there's other cultures, they just do not have that concept at all. So
get off my lawn.
My lawn. Oh my God. Yeah. There was this British ethnographer who went to some African tribe and wanted to play a game with some kids there. So it's like, okay, see that tree there? Whoever comes there first gets a present. So there's this sense of competition. Like, okay, you have to outcompete the other two, and then only you will get something. This is basically the thing. What do the kids do? They all walk to the tree and touch it all at the same time.
That's what we should be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, share individual gains basically, and the world would become a much better place.
One for all for one.
Exactly.
I think that's a good place to end. We've gone a bit over time, so
Yep, definitely.
Thanks for listening, everyone. This has been our Findhorn Barrow, episode number 9, with Alex Wright and John Özgüç.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really nice to share thoughts, and I look forward to what the listeners think and to a nice after discussion.